I thought Oregon over at USC actually reinforced a lot of what we've talked about in both really impressive ways with USC and sort of what has ailed USC, and at the same time, what has been very impressive about Oregon, and at the same time, some concerns about Oregon. So I thought that checked a lot of boxes, and it just so happens to have been the headliner of the weekend.
It was, and we
That
did
and Oklahoma, Mizzou. Yeah.
Oklahoma Zoo, which maybe we could talk about next, which I
Yeah.
think reinforced some stuff in its own right. But yeah, Oregon wins 42-27. We did the 4-hour stream for this game. Thank you to everybody who stopped by. I feel like it went much the way we thought it was going to go. There was some nuance here and there, but by and large, you and I were both pretty spot on. I think my final prediction was something like 38-25, wasn't really that far off. And the reason that I went there is because to me, it felt like a bit of a rather obvious mismatch. That being USC's rushing defense versus an Oregon rushing attack that has been very good. I remember talking through with you all the guys who averaged 6 or more yards per carry on the Oregon side. Not to say that's the only way that they're going to beat a team, but it's one of the ways that they've been successful in winning so far this season. And as we saw this game go on, Oregon did lean progressively more and more on that ground assault as the game wore on. It was apparent the deeper we got into this thing that they could use that. They could possess the ball. They could wear USC down. That to me was sort of obvious going in and even more obvious coming out. But I think the thing that really was reinforcing to me as I think about how Oregon won this game, we knew USC was going to score.
Yeah.
We knew they were going to score. And I think by and large, it's a pretty good effort on the USC side. Jaden Mayava, the wideouts, all that stuff kind of was assumed going in. What was really reinforced to me is what Oregon can do in the trenches, specifically with their defensive line. They're banged up as hell along the offensive line. But as far as the defensive line goes, they allowed just 52 yards on the ground, due in no small part because of that defensive front. And secondly, and I would say most importantly against an offense like this, didn't have any sacks, but pressured the hell out of Jaden Mayava.
Yep.
And
forced a fumble. Yeah.
Forced a fumble. Yeah. But it was one of those deals where they were forcing him out of rhythm, forcing him to make some throws a little bit sooner than he would like. He kind of buckled under the pressure from time to time. It was forcing throws into double, triple coverage. Had 2 interceptions, probably could have had more in this football game. I just thought they did a really good job using that pressure to their advantage, which again was something that I thought coming in, but you never really know when you're going up against a good offense until you see it go down. And I thought Oregon did a really good job on that front. So I credit what they can do and have done all season along the defensive line.
Yeah, I mean, look, you start with the injuries too. Both of these teams were beat up along the offensive line. Obviously, USC missing their starting safeties is a big deal in this one. When Oregon had the success that they had through the air, both down the seam to guys like Kenyon Sadiq, Malik Benson made big plays. You mentioned Oregon running the ball. They were able to do so without their starting right tackle for a chunk of this game, starting center for a chunk of this game, left tackle in and out of this game. Look, for as impressive as the throws were on both sides of the ball, I think you just got to tip your cap to how well those refs threw those yellow flags, Ty. They're going to be icing those shoulders.
Here we go again with this.
I'm just telling you, Ty, in terms of the accuracy, you prepare yourself for a game like this. If you're a referee, you all off season long, and you're going to say, I'm going to get in my reps and just throwing that flag. I don't want to belabor the point, but they were obviously terrible. They were like, anybody who watched even accidentally came across this game were like, oh, these are terrible referees. USC fans, I'm sure, feel that they were terrible referees at certain moments, and Oregon fans felt that they were terrible referees. I'm not even going to say it was terrible officiating. I'm going to say, personally speaking, they are terrible at what they do. And of course, the game ended with Gary Danielson ended the game, and this is like his second to last game, I think, for CBS. He's like, I thought the refs did a great job. And that was about all I needed to know. To reinforce, to go with the theme, in my opinion here. Oregon made more plays. They had the punt return for a touchdown. They had the interceptions. They had the big passes up the seam. They had the big third down conversions. They had the big runs for touchdowns. They made plays on defense. And USC, while in great individual plays at times, it was Mekhi Lemon and Jacoby Lane.
Yeah.
It was a struggle for USC at times. They were abysmal on special teams, and they gave away too many free yards, and they couldn't at all establish anything on the ground. I was seeing USC fans talk about how they're like a 300 through the air, 200 on the ground type team. King Miller had 30 yards, I want to say. Did he have 30? 15 carries for 30 yards. So Oregon, as you mentioned, did a great job. Bear Alexander, the USC transfer, did a great job for Oregon. And the Ducks were just able to make more plays. There were times when it seemed like USC decided, like, what if we just built the whole plane out of pass interference? The old, I was about to say the Jane Pauley, not the Jane Pauley, the Jane Costin all PI offense.
Right.
And it worked for them. It really
did.
did work. And so it was an impressive performance from Oregon. USC marched down the field quickly to start the game, but otherwise it was a great individual moment here or there for these receivers for USC. It was a much more complete performance from Oregon. And, closing out, you mentioned the long drive in the fourth quarter. They just did more right things more often in this game, and they have more good players at more positions who are better prepared to make more successful plays. And so I came away much more impressed with Oregon as a coach team. At one point, USC had a receiver trying to start a fight on the Oregon sideline.
That was special. I did enjoy that. Just
not
as
a
we were doing
moment.
our stream, that was fun. That was fun to discuss on the stream.
Not an ideal moment to point to where USC is at in terms of having players ready to compete on the general public side of the field. A really nice win for Oregon in a tough spot.
I misspoke. Mateo Uiagalelei had the 1 sack for Oregon.
That was on the forced fumble, I think.
That was on the forced fumble. Yeah, and the shout out to One Swell Foop who tweeted us and said that USC really put the special in special teams today with a free kick out of bounds. They hit a player that called for a fair catch, leaping foul on a missed Oregon field goal that extended a drive.
Led to a touchdown, I believe. Yeah.
Allowed a kick return touchdown and missed a short field goal. Thank you for that tweet.
Yeah.
Apologies. I know this gentleman's a USC guy, but Oregon gets the win here. This is a pretty big win. It was, I think, the biggest remaining hurdle for the Ducks. Nothing is clinched as of now in the Big Ten. I mean, I guess Indiana pretty much has it sewn up, but in terms of what the game actually looks like in the Big Ten title, there are mathematical possibilities for Oregon, obviously for Ohio State, even for Michigan, depending on what happens next week in that Michigan-Ohio State game. We will talk through all of those scenarios on one of our episodes coming up this week.